The evening air was thick with exhaustion as I unlocked the door to my apartment. The familiar hush of my space should have greeted me, offering solitude after a long day at work. Instead, laughter spilled from the living room, warm and uninvited. I hesitated before stepping inside. My cousin, Aisha, sat comfortably on the couch, her smile wide as she spoke animatedly. Across from her, legs crossed with practiced ease, sat her husband, Rafiq. He glanced up as I entered, his dark eyes catching mine for a fraction too long before shifting away. "You're home," Aisha beamed, oblivious to my hesitation. "We thought we'd surprise you." Surprise was an understatement. Though Aisha and I had been close growing up, life had drawn us apart. Rafiq, on the other hand, had always been more of a presence than a person to me, someone who occupied space beside her, but never within my thoughts. Until now. I murmured a greeting and set my bag down, schooling my expression into something polite. Rafiq's gaze flickered toward me again, subtle yet deliberate. It was a look I shouldn't have noticed, but I did. Aisha launched into chatter, recounting trivial details of their day. I responded where necessary, my voice automatic, but my attention kept wavering. Rafiq wasn't speaking much, only observing, his presence like a shadow stretching into the corners of my awareness. The evening wore on, the three of us enclosed in a comfortable rhythm, but something beneath it simmered, unspoken, undefined. When Aisha left to take a phone call, the shift was immediate. The silence between us stretched, neither awkward nor easy. Then his voice, low and smooth. "It's been a while since we really talked." I turned to him, unsure how to respond. There was something measured about the way he said it, as if he were weighing each syllable before letting it slip free. "I suppose," I replied carefully. A faint smile played on his lips. "Come up to the rooftop with me. Fresh air will do us good." The suggestion shouldn't have felt loaded, but it did. A moment passed, stretched taut with decision. Then, with an exhale, I nodded. The rooftop was quiet, the city humming softly beneath us. The air was cooler here, crisp against my skin. I wrapped my arms around myself as I leaned against the railing, aware of him standing close, but not too close. For the first time that evening, I allowed myself to look at him fully. There was something disarming about the way he held himself, relaxed but intent, as if every movement was a quiet decision. His voice broke the silence again. "Tell me, do you ever think about things that could have been different?" A slow, creeping sensation settled over me, equal parts curiosity and caution. I should have walked away then. Instead, I stayed. The city sprawled below us, its endless lights flickering like dying stars. A gentle breeze stirred the night air, carrying the distant murmur of traffic and the faint scent of rain. Rafiq stood beside me, his presence both familiar and foreign in the dim glow of the rooftop lights. I should have answered his question, dismissed it with a polite laugh, or redirected the conversation to something harmless. Instead, I found myself trapped in the weight of his words. "Things that could have been different," I echoed, stalling for time. He turned to face me fully, resting his hands against the railing. "Yes. Choices made, paths not taken. Do you ever wonder?" There was something about the way he asked, soft, introspective, yet undeniably pointed. I swallowed, suddenly aware of how close we stood. The distance between us felt dangerously thin, an invisible thread stretched taut. "I try not to dwell on things I can't change," I said, forcing a lightness into my voice that I didn't quite feel. Rafiq studied me, his gaze steady. "And yet here you are, with me." The words settled between us, an unspoken challenge. I should have stepped away then, created the space we both needed. Instead, I stayed rooted, drawn in by something I couldn't name. He lifted a hand slowly, hesitating for a fraction of a second before brushing a stray strand of hair from my face. His touch was light, barely there, but it sent a shiver down my spine. "This is wrong," I whispered, though I made no move to stop him. "Then tell me to leave," he murmured, his voice low, steady. I opened my mouth, but the words refused to form. The air between us grew heavier, charged with an energy that neither of us dared acknowledge. His fingers traced the line of my jaw, and I hated how easily my body betrayed me, how my pulse quickened, how heat pooled in the pit of my stomach. Rafiq took a step closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from him. His scent, faint cologne mixed with something deeper, something uniquely him, wrapped around me like a drug. "This is the last time," I whispered, though I wasn't sure if I meant it for him or for myself. He didn't answer. Instead, he leaned in, his lips ghosting over mine, testing, waiting. The moment stretched unbearably, anticipation coiling tight in my chest. And then, as if drawn by an invisible force, I closed the distance. The first kiss was tentative, uncertain, a question. But when I didn't pull away, when my fingers found his shirt and clenched, his hesitation vanished. The second kiss was deeper, filled with unspoken longing and something dangerously close to surrender. As his hands traced the curve of my back, I knew there was no turning back. We had crossed the line. The rooftop air, once crisp and cool, now felt thick, charged with something neither of us dared name. The city hummed below, unaware of the quiet storm unfolding above it. My breath came unsteady as Rafiq's lips moved against mine, slow and searching, as if savoring the inevitability of this moment. I should have pulled away, but instead I pressed closer. His hands, firm yet careful, traced the curve of my waist, fingers grazing exposed skin beneath my blouse. A sharp inhale escaped me at the contact, my body betraying every unspoken protest my mind attempted to form. "This shouldn't be happening," I murmured against his lips. His grip tightened slightly, grounding me in the reality of what we were doing. "Then stop me," he said, voice thick with restraint. But I didn't. The last thread of resistance snapped as his lips trailed along my jaw, down the hollow of my throat. A soft gasp left me, fingers tangling in his shirt as if to steady myself, but there was no stability in what we were doing. This was reckless, dangerous. Yet every touch ignited something deep inside me, something I hadn't realized was missing. Rafiq moved with a deliberate slowness, drawing me further into the spiral of our betrayal. My blouse slid from my shoulders, fabric whispering against my skin as he pulled it away. His hands skimmed over me with a mixture of reverence and urgency, as if committing each moment to memory. Somewhere in the back of my mind, guilt stirred, a distant echo, easily drowned beneath the weight of his touch. I wasn't thinking about Aisha, about the consequences that would inevitably follow. Right now, there was only the rooftop, only the two of us and the heat radiating between our bodies. His lips found mine again, more demanding this time, as if something between us had finally snapped. A quiet moan slipped from me as he lifted me effortlessly, pressing me against the cool metal railing. The contrast of temperature sent a shiver through me, heightening every sensation. My hands moved on their own, slipping beneath the hem of his shirt, feeling the warmth of his skin beneath my fingertips. His breath hitched slightly at my touch, and the sound sent a fresh wave of desire coursing through me. He pulled back just enough to meet my gaze, his expression unreadable in the dim light. "Tell me to stop," he said again, his voice barely more than a whisper. I should have. The moment lingered between us, stretched thin with the weight of unspoken choices. But instead, I reached for him, wordlessly answering what we both already knew. As his body pressed against mine, as desire overtook reason, one thought pulsed through my mind. There was no turning back now. The night felt different now, thicker, heavier, as if the air itself carried the weight of what we had done. My body still tingled with the remnants of his touch, but the heat that had consumed me moments ago was quickly cooling into something else. Something sharper. I pulled away first, breathless, my skin still flushed from where his hands had traced paths only meant for someone else. The silence between us was deafening, filled with everything we couldn't say. Rafiq exhaled, running a hand through his hair, his expression unreadable. "This," I started, but the words wouldn't come. A faint crease formed between his brows. "I know." He didn't finish the thought, but he didn't have to. The weight of reality was settling in fast, wrapping around me like an iron chain. My stomach twisted as I thought of Aisha, her laughter, her trust. The way she had looked at me just hours ago, completely unaware. I turned away, gathering my scattered clothes with shaky hands. Each movement felt mechanical, as if my body was working on instinct while my mind scrambled to process what had happened. Rafiq didn't move to stop me, didn't reach for me the way he had before. Instead, he spoke, his voice quieter now. "Do you regret it?" I froze, fingers tightening around the fabric of my blouse. The answer should have been easy. Yes, an immediate and firm declaration of guilt. But the truth was messy, tangled in a web of emotions I couldn't quite unravel. "I don't know," I admitted finally, my voice barely above a whisper. Rafiq didn't respond right away. When I finally turned back to him, his gaze was already on me, searching for something I couldn't name. There was no satisfaction in his expression, no triumph, only a quiet understanding. "We can't let this happen again," I said, forcing steel into my tone. He nodded, but something in his eyes told me he wasn't entirely convinced.
Neither was I.
The rooftop, once a place of quiet temptation, now felt suffocating. Without another word, I turned toward the staircase, the descent back to reality feeling far steeper than before. As I reached the bottom, I saw Aisha through the open doorway, her back turned as she scrolled through her phone, unaware of the storm brewing just behind her. Guilt clawed at my chest, but beneath it, something darker lurked, something that scared me more than the betrayal itself. Because even as I stood there, drowning in remorse, part of me still felt the ghost of Rafiq's touch. And worse than that, part of me still wanted more.